What should not be considered okay, but is often encouraged. Story 1. I recently started a new job, but until the probationary period was over, I kept my old job where I worked nights, even though the new job was basically full time. Also, in order to help me do better at my job, I started taking a class 2 nights a week. There was literally a 3-day stretch every week where I had no more than 45 minutes of sleep. I was exhausted and snappy, and it was actually making me worse at my new job because I was literally falling asleep all the time. The worst part was I had weekends off neither job nor class, and I felt guilty. All I wanted to do was sleep, but I felt guilty for not being busy. I felt lazy and useless. I started looking for another part-time job for the weekends because I was genuinely afraid and I looked like a freeloader. It wasn't until I got into a car accident, very minor thankfully, but an accident nonetheless, that I realized what I was doing to myself. I dropped the class and got out of the night job as soon as I could. Now I just have one full-time job and it feels amazing. I didn't realize I wouldn't have time to sleep when I made the schedule. I figured it would be hard, but I thought that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to struggle, not sleep, and work really hard to be successful. Both my bosses knew what I was doing and completely encouraged it. I was young, I could handle it, that's how I'd get ahead. I genuinely believed that I was supposed to feel like I was about to die from exhaustion every minute, or I'd be looked down upon as someone who didn't try at all. I'd figure I'd have at least an hour or two between locations to sleep, but it didn't work out that way. And when the situation proved unlivable, I got out. I had to learn that lesson. Getting just 45 minutes of sleep per night for 3 days sounds like pure torture. I usually feel like a zombie with 5 hours or less. Story 2. It's not okay to teach a boy that he can never cry. Boys don't cry. That's not true. Humans cry. Pretty much everywhere. Men are taught that they can never show weakness. Screw that. Every person in the world should have a time and place where it's okay for them to be weak. When men are taught never to show weakness, it's difficult to handle emotions healthily, and they can come out in unhealthy ways like violence and self-harm. I will never tell my son that boys don't cry. I will teach my kids that there are some situations where you can be weak and others where you need to be strong. In regards to some men not crying just because that's how they are, that's true. Everyone has different ways of showing emotion. My concern is more with allowing people to have a healthy way of dealing with what life throws at them. That may be crying or by another way of dealing with stress. However, if crying is something you need to do to deal with, then that should be okay. I usually keep my emotions to myself, but a while back we had to put down my pup, who we got when I was 4. She'd been through everything with me. Parents' divorce, siblings going to college, middle and high school college, etc. Right around that time, I lost both my living grandparents and a close family friend, so that event hit hard, and I would occasionally cry when I was with my significant other. It helps. People should do it and not feel ashamed. On the other hand, when we went to put her down, I couldn't cry because my mom was there and I had to be there for her. So yeah, there are times to cry and times to be strong. Story 3. Helicopter parenting and taking away children's opportunity to learn age-appropriate independence. Within reason. I had a severe helicopter mom until I had to cut her out of my life at 21 a year ago. She demanded access to all my social media, email, and bank accounts to make sure I wasn't doing anything stupid. And I wasn't able to access my own bank account. If I didn't text her every 5 minutes, she would call and yell at me. And we had a minimum of 3 phone calls a day, usually lasting at least a half hour each. When I was a teenager, she would take my phone and text my ex-boyfriends at the time for me and pretend she was me, so I would focus on schoolwork and her instead. They had no idea. She would proofread all of my homework and read every email before I sent it, whether it was for school, personal, or even work. She picked my clothes out every morning, even when I didn't live at home, and she did my hair every morning when I was at home. There's so much I could say, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. When I graduated college a year ago, I demanded my bank account be passed over, and she refused. This was my breaking point. I went to the bank, moved all my money, and haven't seen my parents or family since. I was a straight A and B student who graduated at the top of my class. I have never done illegal substances, don't drink booze, and didn't even attend a single party while in college. I have a very stable full-time job and have almost no debt. I am not a person who needs to be watched over and smothered like this. Now I'm going to therapy to try and sort this all out in my head, and I'm trying to learn how to live. I know many parents feel they are doing the right thing by smothering their child, and I know that for some children, they might need some extra attention. But please be very careful. You can really screw up your adult children by doing this and not respecting boundaries. Story 4. Not listening to your doctor because you feel your idea will work better. If you feel strongly for or against some treatment, discuss it with your doctor, and they can explain why they feel you need it. Just don't take it on yourself after you've left to decide. Examples that come to mind would be people thinking they need antibiotics for the cold or flu. Antibiotics fight bacteria and won't have any effect on these viruses. People stopping their antibiotics because they feel better. Finish the course to kill all the bacteria. Don't create more drug-resistant ones. Facebook seems fond of this, but giving up your chemo for your alternative internet method, be it injecting CBD oil or some herbal cure, by all means, discuss them with your doctor if you feel they may help, but don't just pass them by and begin your own treatment by yourself. I'm not saying you should believe they're perfect or know it all. I think any doubts or queries you have should be discussed with them. Problems can occur in the private healthcare system. In particular, when a doctor or practice will get more money or an incentive to use a specific medicine or carry out a procedure that may not be required. My point was about those who choose to blindly ignore or act differently toward their doctor based on some poorly directed internet research. There are many great places on the internet to look for proper studies though, or a hunch. Doctors are humans and will make mistakes, but asking questions or getting a second opinion from another doctor, not the randomer from the pub, can help, of course. Well, they say Dr. Google is the best doctor out there, and he has so many patients worldwide. Kidding. Story 5. So when are the two of you finally going to have a baby? I really do love my mother-in-law, but she's crazy with this stuff. Shortly after my husband brought me home to meet her, we had just been dating for a while at that point, she said she had a feeling someone in the family was pregnant. She wanted it to be me. She had no problem with her son knocking up his girlfriend after like 5 months. She wanted another grandkid. And then this year we invited her to my mother's 4th of July cookout because we knew she wasn't doing anything. We thought it would be nice to include her. She had this crazy idea that we were trying to get the family together to make a pregnancy announcement. She said as much while everyone looked at me and my eyes got wide. What? No, baby. My uterus is empty. I don't know why some older women are so gung-ho about this. Wherever I go, whether to my mother-in-law's or in my own mother's house, someone is handing me a baby and asking me how it feels. Story 6. Parents are not disciplining their kids. People today act like if you raise your voice at a kid, you are a horrible human being and a parent. I'm not saying you should spank your damn kids, but this thing where parents tell their kids to do something and they defy them is ridiculous. Every time I see a parent say, "Count to 5, I laugh. Even better is when parents punish kids for disobeying them by taking away an iPad for 20 minutes. Jesus Christ. When I was young, if I knew the consequences of my actions were 20 minutes without entertainment, I would have done whatever I wanted. This new mindset is so upsetting. I constantly see couples with a toddler, and the toddler will start throwing screeching fits, and the parents either ignore the kid or pick them up and don't know what to do with them, so they go about their business all while this kid is screaming at the top of their lungs and bawling incessantly. A close friend of mine had a kid with his girlfriend a few years ago, and every time their kid would start screaming or crying, the girlfriend would just sit there and be embarrassed. Her thought process was something along the lines of, "It's his choice to act up. I didn't do anything to make him upset." You have to teach your children. They aren't going to learn anything from your hinting at social cues that you already know. They don't know them because they aren't adults yet. They need to be taught these things first. Jesus. And I am talking about public places. Of course, you should ignore their tantrums at home. You can't give in and let them have all the power. I'm talking about out in public. If you came to an IKEA, you came in a car, and you need to be taking that kid out to that car or just outside, your shopping day is over. I know, extremely inconvenient, but hey, you're raising a child now. Unless you can get them to calm down, every kid is different and needs different things to learn. on top of everyone having their own ways of parenting. Don't just be out in a crowded public establishment and be like, well, nothing I can do. He or she is just going to cry, so we are going to browse IKEA for another 2 hours. Story 7. Having children when you can't afford it. Or in general, encouraging children, even those who aren't enthusiastic about the idea. Being an unwanted child is an awful thing. Even worse, I once talked to an Indian friend of mine. He said if an arranged marriage doesn't work out, then the couple is often encouraged to have a child, because then that will bring the couple together. That sounds just awful on so many levels. I think the whole have a baby and save a marriage thing is common with all ethnicities and cultures, and there have been studies done in addition to common sense that say having a child reduces marital satisfaction. It does literally the opposite of what people wanted to do. Let's just stop trying to create people without their consent, shall we? Story 8. College education being a business. Colleges charge a ton of money based on demand rather than working with the government to keep tuition low, so that more kids may attend higher education. The notion that college after high school is the only track that doesn't lead to poverty and failure. On top of that, there is the incredible stigma surrounding vocational education. The encouragement of mental health stigma over the encouragement of learning and understanding mental health. Politicians widely accepted as lying, money-run people, yet we appoint them to speak for everyone. This is accepted, but I also can't think of how to change that without a huge movement, i.e., everyone refusing to vote. Story 9. Not as serious as the others here, but girls expect the guy to ask them out. I've still seen girls who say they're too shy to ask a guy out, or they're worried about being judged or afraid of rejection. But that's exactly what guys have to go through too. No one's going to think you're easy to ask people out. And if they do, just keep those Regina Georges out of your life. It shouldn't be a guy's job to kickstart the relationship. I actually like it more when a girl is the one to take initiative, because it shows she's confident enough to go for what she wants. I'm not saying guys should sit on their bums and wait for girls to come along and ask them out. I'm saying if you like someone, go for it, regardless of what equipment you have. I was asked out by a woman for the first time in my life a few months ago. I am 26. It was the most flattering experience that I have ever had. I was so taken aback that it took me a moment to muster a response. I thought it was a prank at first. What in the world would a friendly, intelligent, cute woman want with a clumsy, ugly goof like me? It turns out that she was genuinely interested. While it didn't work out, I hope that I will be asked out again at some point in my life. I doubt it. I've never been the type to get much attention, and I always had to be the one to go after a woman I was interested in. But the one time it happened, it was very nice and super flattering. Story 10. The loudest are always right. This happens far too often. I also hate that, as a society, we tend to reward this behavior. I used to work in a grocery store, and if we messed something up and the customer was polite and understood that human beings made mistakes, we'd just apologize and they'd be on their way. If a customer threw a huge enough fit, we'd give them a gift card or something so they'd stop making a scene. It just goes to show that making a scene will get you what you want. As my man Calvin wisely puts it, when reason fails, crank up the volume. While it may not be the noblest approach, if you find this as amusing as I do, go ahead. Give that like button some love, and join us for more wild tales of people bending the rules with style on my channel. Story 11. Being violated in prison. This kind of punishment is inhumane, not meted out fairly, and doesn't solve anything. If anything, people who go through this in prison are more likely to do this to others when they are released. The comments here routinely show widespread support for this. It is probably the most widespread unethical belief I have seen on this website. Prison should be seen as a punishment in itself. I don't care what you have done to deserve prison time. Condoning inmate violations as a means of punishment is an incredibly backwards way of achieving justice. It continues to be a big joke in our society, and it's awful. Story 12. Cheating. I've seen too many coworkers and friends encouraging others to go for it. It's a disgusting thing to do, and I believe way too many songs, shows, and movies romanticize it as a passionate act of love. It's really just two people messing up some poor man or woman over. A girl in a relationship with a good friend of mine started flirting with me. Being the smart aleck I am, I jokingly did it back, thinking this was the most obvious sarcasm in the world. It turns out it wasn't. I started getting pictures from the girl, and I asked my best friend how to handle it by simply cutting off contact with her or telling my good friend. This a-hole actually told me, "Forget about your friend. You better do it with her." I was completely dumbfounded. Like, how would you feel if your friend slept with your girlfriend? I've been cheated on. It's not a great feeling. It hurts, and the fact that he and society as a whole encouraged it disgusts me. I don't really talk to my best friend now because of it. Still trying to wrap my head around his thought process and cut off all contact with the girl. I also anonymously tipped my friend off to her attempted cheating. Story 13. Just tough it out. No, if you're sick or injured, you need to rest and recover. I partially blame the economy for this one. God knows, I used to go to work sick out of fear of being fired. The restaurant industry is rampant with this. I worked as a waiter for several years in several restaurants, and I never encouraged a single one that took a tolerable approach to employee sickness. More often than not, the routine was, "Did you get your shift covered? No? Then I'll see you on the floor tonight." So then, of course, you're in the mix with dozens of other people, multiplying the risk of getting someone sick and allowing that to creep across the rest of the employees. For the line cooks, it's even worse. Most of them are severely underpaid and overworked and can't afford to miss a shift. So if they're sick, they're almost always coming into work. Already paranoid about health and hygiene standards of certain restaurants? Now throw in the fact that one of the guys handling your food could very likely be sick. Pretty comforting thought, isn't it? Story 14. Well, it's not a violation if it's a guy because guys always want physical relations thing. That's disgusting. That mentality needs to be nipped in the bud. There needs to be more people out there working with all victims of all genders. Also, more people need to know that just because you get excited doesn't mean you want it or like it. People need to be told to speak out. There need to be more people out there who are willing to listen. I've heard of therapists turning men away because they're men and saying, "Oh, they wanted it." Hell no. On the flip side, more people need to learn that it's not okay to lie about this sort of thing. It's a serious claim that can ruin someone's life. Story 15. Social media therapy. A lot of almost meaningless enabling happens to justify bad decisions. You can do what you want. Screw them. No, they can't do what they want. It doesn't work like that. I meant when people give bad, often sycophantic advice to friends who do not challenge their actions when that's what they need. Telling them it's fine and do what you want to do and such only encourages selfish actions. Of course, I'm talking about enabling poor life choices, not when a friend is asking for genuine advice. Story 16. Taking pictures of someone and posting them on the internet without their consent or knowledge. This one really bothers me, especially stuff like people of Walmart or things of that ilk. Yes, they made the decision to go out in public dressed like that and looking outrageous, but do we really need to take a picture of them, post it online, and have millions of people laugh at their expense? I mean, some of the pictures are funny, but it's easy to forget that we're posting a photo of someone's mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, etc. The whole practice feels very juvenile. I'm all for circulating videos like two redneck moms fight in Walmart. They brought that upon themselves. But when someone else is just unsuspectingly strolling through public and they get a picture taken of them, it comes off as tasteless. Snapping pics of someone without their go-ahead and sharing them online? Not cool, folks. Story 17. Accruing debt and living beyond your means. No, you don't owe it to yourself to drive that BMW or live in a house that is 3 to 4 times your annual salary just because you finally have a job. It's a great way to set yourself up for a life of financial stress, which compounds into many other problems. A friend of mine's parents wanted him to co-sign on a house they wanted to buy because their credit was poor, and his was stellar. He flat out told them no. They explained that they worked hard all their lives and deserved this house. He countered that they didn't save their money and make sound financial decisions and didn't deserve anything like that. A couple of years later, his dad is laid off and they are struggling to make the much smaller house payment they have now. People do deserve shelter and transportation. They just don't deserve or require luxury transportation and a 4-bedroom house when all of their kids have left the nest. Live within your means and your life will be less stressful. Story 18. To go after someone who has a significant other already. Any woman or man who tries to get with someone who is married is stupid and terrible. If they cheated for you, you don't think they will cheat on you? Also, laying your hands on a married man is low, and people should be ashamed. Marriage means something to some people. Just because it doesn't mean anything to you doesn't make it okay. Sorry, I'm a bit biased. Last year, I had to chase a girl away from my husband after he told her to stay away several times. Story 19. Being late for everything. It's not just encouraged. Punctuality is overrated. Oh, you're always on time? It's because you're lame and have no life. No, it's because I'm not a rude a-hole with poor time management. The excuses for lateness and people's active acceptance of them drive me absolutely insane. If I say 2 p.m., I'm not being cute. I don't really mean 2:45 or 3. I mean 2 p.m., or preferably 1:55 p.m. I have kids, I deal with traffic, and I still manage to get to things on time or early. It's even more insane when these people have kids. School start and end times are set in stone. You can't just throw up whatever. But I know plenty of parents whose kids are late to school 9 times out of 10. I assume their kids are also picked up late. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy what is considered socially acceptable for no reason. Story 6 is just damn right. See you on that video.